What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be looking at Manchester United versus Newcastle as our first analysis of the day. I'm also going to be getting up the Chelsea and Manchester City games as well, so be on the lookout for those two later on today or tomorrow. But we're going to look at Ronaldo's debut and the tactics behind how Manchester United beat Newcastle 4-1, with Ronaldo grabbing 2 goals on his second debut for Manchester United. And before we start, check out both my books. They're online, they're on Amazon, and there's links in the description below. But let's get right into it. So to start off, Manchester United lined up in their 4-2-3-1 against Newcastle's 5-4-1. So what this entailed was 2 central defenders, Varane and Maguire, acting as they have all season, with the double pivot ahead of them of Matic and Paul Pogba. And now what kept happening with Matic and Paul Pogba is a typical movement in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United team, with one staying centrally and then one holding midfielder going into the half space. And what this typically elicits is a jumping action from the fullbacks, because they have cover from the 2 holding midfielder, making some staggering between the lines. Oftentimes Matic would come deeper in the left half space and Paul Pogba would operate more in the center and right half space. Now further forward, we'd have the overload between the lines, which is where Ronaldo comes into play. So between the lines, Fernandes and Ronaldo would occupy space in the blind spot of the midfielders, and oftentimes they'd overload 4 players of Newcastle, and it would allow for a lot of vertical and horizontal positional interchanges. So the space they would overload was also taken advantage of by first the holding midfielder progressing past the first striker of Newcastle, as they played with a lone striker. And what this would do, it was pull out then a midfielder from a deeper position, allowing now for space to be created between the lines and undoing the vertical compactness of Newcastle. So now from here, if they release the wide area, it would give the players overloading the space between the lines more freedom to run into and attack the box, or it would offer a solution for Paul Pogba to play directly between the lines and take advantage of superiority created directly in central areas by the players further forward. Now we have Paul Pogba dropping to the right half space and Matic coming into a more central position as the lone holding midfielder now. So this is a typical movement from Manchester United, and sometimes we can see Maguire focus more on the half space rather than coming so narrow and coming so close to Varane, causing inefficient occupation of space, as it doesn't elicit good positive ball circulation across multiple vertical corridors. So now with Paul Pogba in the half space, though, we then start to see different movements from the players between the lines. So now we have Ronaldo coming a bit deeper, and his positioning puts him between 2 midfielders of Newcastle, which essentially pins them, or he can create direct superiority from this. So as we outline the back 5 from Newcastle, we can see that the overload is happening because of the situation that the wide central defender isn't jumping right away to Ronaldo. So a lot of times Mason Greenwood would invert, pinning the wide central defender with Jadon Sancho or the weak side winger or Bruno Fernandes. So typically we'd have 2 players pinning the 3 center defenders. So once the wide central defenders for Newcastle are pinned and Ronaldo is positioned in behind the midfielders and just in their blind spot, splitting 2 of them, Paul Pogba now has the opportunity to either play centrally to Ronaldo and generate superiority directly going towards goal, or through the narrowing of these midfielders to block off the pass to Ronaldo, Paul Pogba can release the wide areas and then get his team into crossing positions. With the Manchester United movements in their offensive phase, we often see situations like this with Harry Maguire and Varane positioned near the central corridor, and Paul Pogba and Matic both in opposite half spaces. So what this does is it creates space in the pivot area through the vacating of the central midfield position, and it allows Harry Maguire or Varane, if he's on the ball, to drive into the midfield, take advantage of the space, and then look to draw out a midfielder directly into pressing a central defender. And this creates space in between the lines, or the central defender can play a mid-range pass into the wide area, and through the overloading between the lines, the horizontal compactness will be adjusted from Newcastle, and it will create free players in forward positions. And now we can look at the partnership that Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo are developing. With now we saw Ronaldo in the previous picture going deeper, and now Bruno Fernandes is occupying the same position. And so this is showing the positional fluidity that the team can possess with Ronaldo, favoring the blind spot of defenders. When the ball goes into wide positions, he likes to play in the blind spot of the defenders and operate on their weak side shoulder to then go and move inside the box undetected and get across their face with great timing to finish crossing chances. So as we see here with Luke Shaw in a crossing position, getting ready to cross, we then have the overload on the weak side between three Manchester United players. And from here, we have the numerical advantage from the crossing positions against two of the weak side Newcastle central defenders, with the third being drawn out through the clever underlapping run of Jadon Sancho. And now what this does, it allows Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, and Mason Greenwood all to occupy the blind spot of the central defenders and create a positional advantage as well as their numerical advantage to then look to get on the end of a cross. And especially an early cross with space in behind, it presents a very dangerous situation because the goalie can't cover all the space by himself, and the defenders are caught out, leaving a big gap for the attackers to move into to try and score. Here again, we can start to look at the vertical partnerships between the players, between the lines, overloading the space between the lines against the Newcastle low block. So from here, against the Newcastle 4-5-1, we have each of our United wingers inverted and positioned off the shoulder of the Newcastle central defenders. So now they're positioned between the central defenders and the wingback, causing the wingbacks to hold their position, and it won't allow the wide central defenders from Newcastle to jump. So what this does is it creates a lot of stress on the most central defender to then give him a decision if he jumps to Ronaldo, positioned between the lines between the two central midfielders. If the most central defender jumps, it creates a gap and dangerous space in behind the most central defenders for the inverted wingers to then move into and try and exploit. Or if the defenders don't jump and Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes position themselves between the lines and look to receive the ball, they can then potentially receive the ball and turn in the final third, which is also a very dangerous situation for them. And especially now with the fullbacks going further forward and through the cover of the double pivot and the two central defenders against the low block, creates a very dangerous situation for Manchester United to either exploit the wide areas through vacant space or try and take advantage of an overload between the lines through a third man concept or something like this. Now for Manchester United in their high block, pressing Newcastle, we have Newcastle's three central defenders in their first phase of build-up. We have on the left side an overload, which changes the shape of Manchester United's 4-2-3-1. So now we have our wide midfielders or our wingers pressing wide central defenders. So whichever way the ball is played, that fullback on that side, so on the left it would be Luke Shaw, on the right it would be Wan-Bissaka, and those fullbacks would then jump to the wingbacks, and then the defense would all shift over and defend and cover the press with three defenders with the fullbacks jumping. Because on this side with Ronaldo only occupying the most central defender of Newcastle, it puts a little bit more stress on the rest of his team and elicits jumping actions from their defenders, which we've seen from them in the past. But now with Ronaldo only occupying one player, they'll have to do a little bit more defensively, especially in the wide area. And I think that's why he's positioned on the right-hand side, because of players like Wan-Bissaka and Varane both play on the right-hand side, giving him cover and making up for this lower defensive role. So now for Manchester United, in another picture, we have Newcastle's build-up with them not using their goalkeeper unless they have to, and their most central defender almost looking like a holding midfielder, but playing more central to then allow Newcastle progression through the wide areas and not playing through their most central defender. Now, what we see at the back for Manchester United is how they cover the press. So we have Wan-Bissaka jumping slightly as the ball may be played to the left-hand side. And now we also have Varane, Maguire, and Shaw all covering and defending with numerical equality. They're then covered by the double pivot of Matic and Pogba. So this is where they create their numerical superiority. With Wan-Bissaka jumping, they use the cover shadows of their holding midfielder to block entry passes into their forwards, which gives Manchester United adequate cover and the numerical advantage when covering their press. Now the three more advanced midfield players of Manchester United are responsible for pressing the central defenders and create vertical partnerships with the double pivot. So when one wide midfielder goes to press, one of the double pivots will press the near side central midfielder as well. So they'll rely heavily on vertical partnerships when pressing, especially in wide areas because of the role of Ronaldo to just cover one defender and look to block off circulation at times. Now the last picture, we have Ronaldo, again, favoring the position to mark the most central defender and sometimes block off circulation. We have the three players behind him, the three advanced midfielders, shifting all the way across and defending full width with the cover of their double pivot in behind, and then their back four behind this in their 4-2-3-1, which they stayed very compact today. And against Newcastle, they didn't really face too many challenges other than some moments in the first half, but once they got 2 and 3 and went ahead, it didn't look like they were going to have any trouble with this. So that's going to wrap up today's analysis, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.